Hello, BookTube. Well, it's a bright sunny day and another bookshelf tour in the endless crawl through my biography bookshelf. I'm afraid it's still not over. So I thought we'd do the transverse ones first, as always. And there are two here that are both about the Roman poet Horace. First is by Edward Frankel, a paperback. Put this aside here. And the other one is by the great 20th century Horace scholar, Shackleton Bailey. This profile of Horace to go with all of the Horace scholarship and translation that he did. They're both wonderful books, although I still maintain, of course, that the best way to learn to know Horace is to read his poetry. Then we have this. This is Sir Harry Bain. His Life and Times, 1613 to 1662, by J.H. Adamson and H.F. Folland. He's a Restoration Bravo who's got a statue here in Boston. Then we move on to Gentleman from New York. This is by Godfrey Hodgson, and it is a biography of Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who was a problematic figure in American intellectual and political history, to say the least. The only good man in the Nixon administration, and someone who hasn't really been given his due historically, although this book is a great biography, so it's definitely a start in the right direction. Then I'm afraid it's Windsor History. This is King George VI and Queen Elizabeth by Christopher Warwick. This is just a dual biography of the king and his queen consort. Nothing new or original in it. I just kind of like its narrative voice. That's not much of a reason to keep it, but then we've got this. This is Lord David Cecil's biography of Melbourne. This is just Melbourne as a young man, this volume. But boy, oh boy, talk about a great biography. It captures him, it captures his time, captures all the issues that were involved in his time. Oh, just enveloping reading. Then we have Samuel Johnson and the Life of Writing. This is by Paul Fussell, who went on to make a name for himself writing about other things. His books on war are what he will be remembered for. But this is a wonderful book that takes the long and complicated life of Samuel Johnson and just carves out the parts of it, which was a lot of it, that dealt with the writing life. This Johnson is quoted everywhere by everyone as saying that only a blockhead wrote except for money. And this is the best book I know on Johnson's writing life. It was a fascinating side of his life. Then we have Peter Gwyn, who's one of my favorite contemporary biographers, and this is The King's Cardinal. Nice big fat Pimlico paperback of the life of Cardinal Wolsey that is very fair to Wolsey, where a lot of biographies of him are not. Then we have Natalie Dykstra's biography of Clover Adams, the wife of Henry Adams, who died suddenly, and has one of the most haunting graveyard monuments that anyone in the world has. It's a thing you really need to. I'll see if I can. Well, I can't put pictures in the description, can I? I'll try to remember to leave a link to the funerary statue of her grave. It's an amazing tribute, and there's one tribute that's even more amazing, but you have to look real hard to see it. In Henry Adams' great book, one of the greatest works of nonfiction in American history, The Education of Henry Adams, there's a break. It's an autobiography. It's his autobiography, and it rolls through the years of his life and the issues involved. And then there's a break of complete silence that marks her death. No mention. No, none of the model and heart on the sleeve stuff that would be in an autobiography today. Instead, silence. And then the narrative resumes. She was a fascinating character in her own right, and this is the best biography of her that's ever been written. And speaking of best biographies ever written, I think I might give the crown to this one. This is Elizabeth Longford's biography of Queen Victoria. I hate the subtitle, Born to Succeed, but that's all right. I still think that this might very well be the best Victoria biography ever written, and there are hundreds of them, so that's saying a lot. I love it. Then we have this thing. This is doesn't really have a cover. It's John Singleton Copley. His Domestic and Artistic Life by Martha Babcock Amory, who's thereby hangs a tale all by itself. But this thing is how old is this? probably 100 years old. This biography, honestly, I can't do it with only one hand, but I think this is 1882. There was a new biography of Copley, of the artist, the great artist John Singleton Copley. There was a new biography of him this year, and this was the best one before that. and I'm not sure it still isn't the best one. It's tremendously good. It's a shame that things like this will never come back into print. So, 99% of the people who might be interested in reading it will never encounter it, because no library is going to have an 1882 copy of anything still on the shelf, and most people don't have access to a bookstore like the Brattles, so you're just never going to know about it. And that's a shame. Then we have Peter Martin. This is a life of a great biographer. This is a life of James Boswell, who has also had a number of biographies, and who also wrote endlessly about his own life. So that you've got journals for every decade and on every month and day of his life. But this is a fantastic and also a very fair biography of Boswell, who was a sot and a moron. So it's difficult to be fair to him in a biography. Then we have Garrett Mattingly's life of Catherine of Aragon, the first wife and the rightful queen of Henry VIII. This is an old literary guild book that I just rescued and fixed. But again, Catherine of Aragon has had many, many biographies, and this is the best one, even though it's it's better part of a century old, I would guess. How old is this book? I don't really want to know. 1941. Oh my God. All right, let's move on. Then we've got this big penguin thing. This is Marian Johnson, The Borgias. I have a sweet tooth for Renaissance family histories. And the Borgias, of course, pulled down the lion's share of them. I wish that some other families got the kind of attention that they do, but this was a really good, quick introduction. Then The Remarkable Education of John Quincy Adams by Phyllis Lee Levin. You can see from the title of this the echo of the education of Henry Adams, his descendant. This is really a biography of the formative years of John Quincy Adams, but it's tough to say where formative years start and stop in a child prodigy. So it looks forward as well as backwards. It's tremendously good, though. John Quincy Adams, I think I've mentioned on this channel, is getting a reprint of his diaries for the Library of America in 2017. Can't wait. Hope that it revises interest in everything about it. And then we have Richard Norton Smith, a heck of a guy, a fantastic lecturer, if you ever get a chance to listen to him, and also a great biographer. And this is his book, Patriarch, which is a biography of George Washington, but which is also a study of Washington as well, a study of his place in history and his hagiography and the whole 9 yards, and invigorating. It's very, very rare to get a Washington biography that isn't full of sheep dip, and this is one of them. Then we have the late Kevin Sharp. This is The Personal Rule of Charles I. He wrote, it's a gigantic thing. This is the only one of his books that I currently have. I've had them all at one point or another. He wrote a shelf of monstrously big books about the Restoration and the pre-Restoration era of English history. I don't know why I don't have all the others. They're all thrillingly good. He's not only good with the biographical and historical facts, but he's great with the intellectual tangle of history, what it all means. You want a biographer who can do that. Then we have a bit of a rarity. Let's see if I can show these on camera. This is Koke of Norfolk and His Friends in 2 volumes. This is a biography of the Earl of Leicester, who was the Lord of Holcombe Hall. It's a great old pile in England that you really should visit if you get a chance. I'm fairly certain that it's open to the public now. I've been in it many, many times, including parts you'll never see. It's the writer of this biography never dreamt that Coke of Norfolk would not be known to his audience, and now he, of course, is totally unknown. And this, again, is a lot like the Copley biography. You'll never see it unless you have access to a really good used bookstore with really high turnover, and not everybody does. So it's really, really good. It's also beautifully produced. Tons of great old black and white photos. And then the last one on this shelf for now is this thing. Margaret Thatcher, The Downing Street Years. Of course, she was involved in the writing of it. It's her biography of her years in power, and she was involved heavily in the writing of it, and more involved in the writing of it than the people who actually wrote it thought she would be. But the people who helped her to write it, especially one particular right-hand man, did such a fantastic job. As far as political memoirs go, it beats almost everything that I can think of for the second half of the 20th century. The only close competition that it might have would be My Life by Bill Clinton. It's just an amazing work. And this one you will see at used bookstores. And if you do, and you're interested in the period, you might look at it and think, it's just going to be airbrushed, transcribed memos and lawyer-vetted nonsense. And it's not. It's actually got tang to it. It's got a snap to its narrative. And there you have it. That is one more shelf in our endless bookshelf tour. And I'll sorry for the bobbing of the camera, but we'll move on to the next shelf next time. Thank you, BookTube.